This episode is sponsored by Osea. Holiday season is coming up, and if you're looking for the perfect gift, look no further. Osea's limited edition Super Glow Body Set is available now, and it makes the perfect gift. I love Osea's products. If you've been watching the show, then you know I've been using them for a while, and I think they're the perfect product for anyone. Give the gift of glow this holiday season with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, I have a special discount just for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code Shannon at OseaMalibu.com. That's OSEAMalibu.com, code Shannon. And one more time, OseaMalibu.com, code Shannon, for 10% off site-wide on your first order. Hi guys, welcome back to X's and O's. I'm your host, Shannon Beveridge. How are we doing? How are you guys doing? This is the last episode that I will be posting before the election, question mark? Yeah. I just want to start today's episode by saying, if you are American, I really hope you have a plan to vote. Please vote. Please vote. I will be voting for Kamala Harris. I will be voting for her. If you didn't see Trump's rally that he had at Madison Square Garden, it was so scary. I cannot in good faith understand how anyone would vote for Trump ever. I don't understand that. I have a really hard time understanding that, and I can't get behind that. I can't really have people like that in my community, in my space. I think he stands for nothing I stand for. I think he stands for hate in general, and just big no on that guy. Please vote. Please vote. And make sure you educate yourself on who you're voting for locally. If it's your first time voting, you may be overwhelmed when you get to the ballot to see that you are not just voting for the President of the United States. There are a lot of other things on the ballot you should look into before you go and vote, because they are very important. They are very, very important. But it is also the President of the United States. I am voting for Kamala. I am endorsing Kamala. Do I stand for everything Kamala stands for? No. Do I stand for anything that Donald Trump stands for? No. Do I love that we live in a world where there is a two-party voting system? Also, no. Do I think that that's changing in 2024? No. So I will be voting for Kamala Harris. Please just have a plan to vote. Please go vote. Please. Come on, I'm asking nicely. Okay, aside from that, Dodgers, hey-o, are we winning or what? What's going on? I've been repping this team for a long time. On purpose? Not really. But do I love them? Sure. I don't really care about sports, but still very exciting, very fun. Obviously, would be fun if they win. So, woo, Dodgers, I love you, kind of. I don't really know anything about you, but I love you. Other funny thing, I went to Pennsylvania this weekend for my cousin's wedding. My baby cousin got married. I'm so happy for her. And it was a beautiful wedding, and it's so fun to be with your family. She looked gorgeous. I love her husband. I'm so happy for her. Yay. But I had such funny conversations when I was in Pennsylvania. I want to share two of them with you guys. The first one being, the first night I get there, I went to a bar, met up with my family. Everyone's kind of dressed up, but my immediate family, we all had just gotten into town. We're kind of all in more casual clothes. So I'm have my hair pulled back. I'm in a gray, waffle t-shirt, long sleeve shirt. And I'm having a conversation with my aunt and my cousin and my mom. And they're all kind of more girly than me. Okay. Dressed more feminine than me. And this guy who's a local, obviously at this bar, comes up to us and he's like, hey, I just want to congratulate you on getting married. I'm so happy for you. And then he walks away. Then he comes back and he's like, and fuck Trump. And we all were like, yeah, fuck Trump. And then he walks away again. Then he comes back. He's like, You know why? Because I was raised by my mom. My mom was a single mom, and I just know that women are like the most important people in the world. Like this world wouldn't be what it is without women. And I know like it's like women like you. So he starts pointing and he starts at my aunt, and I'm the furthest this way, right? We're standing in a line. So he starts on the left and I'm on the far right. And he goes, it's women like you and you, points to my cousin, points to my mom, and you, looks at me like out of the corner of his eye, decides against calling me a woman, and he goes, you all know what I mean, but didn't point at me and did not say like, and women like you at me. And me and my aunt were like, looking at each other from across this like little circle, semicircle we had. And we're dying laughing. And I like to her kind of was like, me too. But it was so funny and kind of like, honestly, like sweet in a way. Like I really think he was just trying to make sure he wasn't being disrespectful. So it was kind of adorable. And then also in a funny way, I'm like, I didn't know I was giving that much not girl right now with like the outfit, the look, my full makeup done. I'm like, I guess, sure. Anyway, silly. That happened. Other funny thing that happened. I have like an older aunt who follows me on social media. I don't know if she watches my podcast or listens to it, but she definitely follows me on Instagram because she's commented on there. But she pulled me aside at one point as she was leaving, and she was like, hey, you know what? You use this word on social media all the time. It's like a word I don't like. And I was like, what's the word? And she was like, queer. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'm sure I understand. She's 82. So I'm like, I feel like maybe that word has been a slur to you like your whole life. So hearing someone use it in that way maybe is jarring to you and like you don't like it. And she was like, yeah, it was like a bad word. And I was like, yeah. And then I tried to explain it to her in a way where I was like, it's like reappropriating it. So I was like, imagine your whole life like someone called you fat and they like were using it against you. Like you had a bully and they were like, you're fat this, you're fat that. And then one day you're like, yeah, I am fat. Then that bully can't use that word against you anymore, you know? And now you have this like newfound power within that word. And she listens to my whole anecdote about it. And then at the end, she's like, yeah, I still don't like the word. And I was like, okay, maybe you're just never gonna, and that's okay. But I'm not gonna argue with you at this wedding, obviously. It was a sweet conversation. It wasn't like anything bad. Just her, I mean, yeah, her own history with the word, I'm sure, is a lot different than my own. So anyway, I mean, obviously, but anyway, then she said the funniest thing. She's like, you know, I always show people your picture because I just think you're so beautiful. And I'll show people your picture and they'll be like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. Is she married? And then I'll be like, no, she's gay. I'm like, you know that's been legal since 2015, right? Like these things are not mutually exclusive. I'm not married because I'm gay. Other things are going on there. So, but anyway, it was funny and I love her. And it's honestly sweet and like refreshing just to like have those conversations with people who grew up in a different time and see them trying to like figure it out, you know? Like I appreciate that she, even though she has her own qualms about a specific word, the fact that she goes around and shows people my picture and also is like, she's gay. I'm like, very good job. Very good job. I'm very proud of you. Last thing I want to say before this episode starts is it is hilarious to me that this episode essentially turns into a therapy session, which makes sense because Casey is a sex therapist and therapist. So very early into this episode, I feel we turn into therapist and client energy, and then it kind of stays that way. So I think it's an interesting episode, but it's definitely funny that we just like fell into those roles. But also, I love Casey. She is amazing. Love this conversation. If you haven't seen her stuff before, she has a book that you can buy. It's sitting on the table during the episode. It's called Feel It All. And then she also is posting regularly on social media. You should follow her and see all the little like anecdotes she's posting. It's very easy to consume and like very informative. Obsessed. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode. I love you all. Have a great week. Vote. Please. Okay, hi guys, welcome back to X's and O's, a podcast where we talk about queer relationships and sex. And this has to be the most fitting guest of all time, Casey Tanner. You may know her from social media. Her @ is Queer Sex Therapy. She's also the founder of the Expansive Group.
The Expansive Group.
Thank you. Sorry. And also the author of Feel It All. And I have the book here, so you guys can look at it, admire it, and you should read it. I did it, right?
You got it.
I said your name?
It was perfect. Yes.
Okay. How are you?
I'm good. I got attacked by 3 really small dogs on my way here. So I'm recovering from that right now. I'm staying in this Airbnb that is somebody's backyard in LA.
Nice.
And they have these dogs and this giant sign that's like, beware of these dogs. Like, don't come outside if these dogs are outside. But then they have an Airbnb in their backyard where the dogs live. So yeah, I've been navigating that for the last few days. Very happy to be
here.
Very happy to be here and safe.
No dogs?
No dogs.
Although I wish I could use a dog or an animal for some like emotional support.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Are you going through something?
Always. Usually always.
Yeah.
Okay, how did you become a queer sex therapist? How did you become a therapist?
Mm-hmm.
How did you get to this table today?
Yeah. Well, I initially went to college to become a pastor, an evangelical youth pastor.
That seems like a normal pipeline.
The
pastor
evangelical pastor
to queer
therapist.
sex therapist.
Absolutely. Well, I like to say I'm still sort of an evangelical. I'm just like preaching something very, very different now.
True.
But yeah, I in college had like a full mental breakdown, and nobody could figure out what the cause of this was, and nobody was asking me questions about gender or sexuality. And when somebody finally did, I started to get better and my symptoms started to go away. And the dots between mental health and queerness were so clearly connected for me that I then sort of set out to help other people connect those dots. Started talking about it online. It was resonating. And, 4 years later, here I am at this table.
Here you are.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And your social media just like, I feel like blew up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it speaks less to me and more to how needy we all are generally, but how needed this intersection was, especially at the time. There's tons of people talking about it now, but I mean, I didn't have a single class on sexuality in grad school. I had to go pay extra money to get the training that I have, which is ridiculous. So yeah, just wanted to create more of those spaces.
Totally. I feel like so much of social media and like success on social media is filling a void. And like, it seems like you hit at the perfect time when you needed your voice.
Yes.
How did you not know you were queer at all?
Oh my God. It's so funny, Shannon. My mom just visited me and brought with her a box of shit from my childhood. And I found these letters that I wrote to my best friend when I was like 14.
Classic.
Oh my God. I was so deeply in love. I was so head over heels. The entire like 6-page letter was all also in AOL speak, so I could like barely understand what I was trying to say. I mean, I knew and I didn't know, right? It's that thing where you both know it so deeply and you have absolutely no language for it. So it was less about realizing it and more just about finding the words.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. I feel like, I don't know if this is true, but I feel like for a lot of girls, a lot of our behaviors and those friendships are like not only okay to have and like, I don't know, but like encouraged. Like it's like, oh yeah, they're just best friends. They cuddle.
Totally. Well, and I think also the conceptualization of intense feelings about other women as jealousy really kept me from realizing that I was attracted to these women. I was like, I have such intense feelings about this person. I must want to be them, right?
Yeah.
So compulsory heteronormativity gives us this other language to sort of explain our queerness away.
Totally.
And it's really powerful.
It's really powerful. It is. It's like, it makes you think about how many people, especially if you think about like how many bi women there must be who just will never
come out.
Like, to themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? They'll just like push that down for
like all of our parents.
No, literally.
Yeah. I think about my parents a lot. They're going to listen to this, so Won't out anyone here. But yeah, I mean, our generation's parents are probably really gay.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And so
We
repressed.
may never know. It's so repressed. Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
But look at all the work we're doing now.
Yeah.
And now
Here we are.
like Gen Z and all of the people who are just like, so I feel like we're in a whole, gender is like a whole new thing that we're finally like opening up, which is exciting.
Thank God.
And fun.
Thank
You
God.
use she, they pronouns,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
When did you like
Yeah.
incorporate they into your pronouns?
Yeah, I went full they them during the pandemic, and then I have this friend, actually, their at is Gender Sauce, and I said to them, I'm thinking of going back to she sometimes, and I'm having feelings about it. What does it mean that I went to they them and now I'm thinking she they? And they said, Casey, you get to visit where you came from. You get to go back to where you came from and see it differently and see it with new eyes. So circled back to she, they, but she lands differently now than it did 5 years ago when I just used she, her. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting stuff. This episode is sponsored by Osea. Holiday season is coming up. I don't know how that's possible. Time is flying. But if you're looking for an easy gift and a gift you also don't have to wrap because the packaging itself is so beautiful, look no further. Osea's limited edition Super Glow Body Set includes 3 of their most popular products. And they're packed in a box that is so beautiful, you can get away with not adding any wrapping paper yourself. The last gift I gave, I think I gave in a grocery bag. And yeah, it left something to be desired, I must say. This gift is so good, you honestly might want to buy one for yourself, but you better hurry because it is a limited edition and they might sell out. It comes with a full-size Undaria Algae Body Oil, their new Undaria Algae Body Wash, and a travel-size hyaluronic body serum. That was hard for me to say, I have to say. Hyaluronic. Am I saying that right? I love using the body wash and the body oil as a part of my everything shower. I've been talking about it on this podcast for a while, but especially with winter coming up and my skin in particular gets really dry, that combo is going to be life-changing and life-saving. And the body oil is also not greasy, but it like really packs in moisture. I've been using it every time I get out of the shower and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. All Osea's products are vegan and cruelty-free. And they're also climate neutral certified and an ocean positive verified brand. So you can feel good while using these products. They make you feel good and you feel good using them. It's a win-win. Save 32% on the set at oseamalibu.com. Plus an additional 10% off when you use the code Shannon. Give the gift of glow this holiday season with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now we have a special discount just for our listeners. Get 10% off your first order site-wide when you use code Shannon at oseamalibu.com. That's oseamalibu.com, code Shannon. And one more time, that's oseamalibu.com, code Shannon. This episode is sponsored by Cure. If you guys know me, then you know I like to hold on to my clothes for a long time and I like to take good care of them when I can. I also am one of those lesbians who has a girlfriend with a purse that I have to keep my little things in. So I like to keep my girlfriend's purses nice too. I think it's important to keep your clothes nice and I think it's important to keep your handbags pristine when you have them. And thanks to this podcast, I've just discovered Cure, the ultimate solution for protecting and preserving your handbags, ensuring they stay beautiful and last forever. If you really think about it, you clean and maintain your shoes, your car, and even your body. So why not give your luxury handbags the same care? They're honestly an investment, and with Cure, you can make sure they last a lifetime. Plus, if you ever decide to resell, which you guys know I love to shop secondhand, Cure ensures that you will get top dollar for your bags because they will still be in perfect condition. In today's world where overconsumption is a big issue, it is important to make things last as long as possible. By taking care of your bags with Cure, you can do just that. There's a limited supply available, so go to mycure.com to get your leather care kit today. That's mycure.com. The best way to make your handbag last forever. Pronouns are so fun, and also like all the neo pronouns and stuff.
I'm still learning.
Me too.
I'm absolutely still learning.
I definitely need to have someone on at some point who's like well versed in every single one, because I'm like, I know very little when it comes to anything. But also it's like, isn't it crazy as a queer person, you're expected to know things when I'm like, I have I have one experience. I have this
Totally.
one experience. And people will come to you and be like, and what's that about?
Oh my God.
I can't even imagine for you.
Yeah, well, I
it's
go
also
on
like your
these
job.
podcasts, and I think that the reason that they want me on is because I'm a sex and relationship therapist. That's what I do. And then they ask me questions like, what does asexual mean? And I'm like, why are you literally asking me questions that you could Google? So yes, I fully hear you.
Yeah.
And it's so humbling. I think about, even when I started my account, how rigid and black and white I was about other people's language. I was like, if you are not using this language, then you don't support queer people. And now that I am learning new language and sometimes fumbling, I'm like, oh my God, that is not actually how change happens. You got to be patient with each other.
Totally. And it does feel, doesn't it? Is it scary to have like a platform that is so queer centered and then feel like you make mistakes? Like,
oh my God. I mean, I have had to learn, and maybe you have too. We talk about different things, but like there is no such thing as doing the right thing as an influencer. You will always, I just posted about voting 2 days ago and got roasted for posting about voting. So we are in a time when, you know, one side or the other is going to have something to say. And so a lot of the work that I do is just accepting that and then reminding myself whose opinions I really care about. And there's like 5 people whose opinions I really care about.
That is so true. I also feel like queer people hold queer people to a really high standard as well. Because most of the criticism is coming within our own community, you know, and people being like, educate yourself more. But I like to think of it less as criticism and more as like learning opportunities. Because I'm like, I'm definitely going to mess up. Especially now, I've said this before, but on my podcast, I'm like, this is my 46th episode with you. So that's like 46 hours of me talking. I'm like, I for sure fucked up.
Yeah.
And I will continue to fuck up. So I think just like, giving people grace and like learning, giving myself grace to make mistakes also. Because I'm so quick to be like, idiot, why did you do that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the best thing I did for myself is just get really confident about my ability to apologize. Like if I know that I can apologize well, then I can take the risk to make the mistake.
Yeah, that's so fair. I'm learning.
I mean, same.
I mean, your book the other day, I was reading and I was like, Jesus, this is like calling me out. In the like avoidance section, it went like defensiveness and then people pleasing right after. And I was like, stop it.
Yeah, people read that chapter is the one I hear about the most.
Yeah.
Where people are like looking in a mirror and it's not that flattering.
Looking in a mirror, looking at my ex's mirrors. I'm like, wait a second. I know that girl. But it is, you guys should read the book. It is helpful and good. Do you think there's a difference between, like a major difference between being a queer, doing queer sex therapy and just sex therapy?
Yeah, I do. When I call myself a queer sex therapist, it is only in part that I identify as queer. And it is mostly that I see everything and everyone through the lens of queerness. And really, I think what that means is just like no boxes, no binaries. And so even when I'm working with straight clients, I'm doing queer sex therapy, whether they know it or not.
Whether they're aware or not.
Yeah.
Do you still see clients right now?
Yeah, a few.
So you're seeing clients, you're doing social media, you're writing books, Are you okay?
Doing too much? No. No, I'm more okay than I've maybe ever been because I've started just saying no a lot more. And I just had a meeting with my social media manager when we were setting our goals for next year. And I was like, my goal is to grow 0 followers next year. Can you help me with this goal? Meaning that I'm just, like, I don't want to burn out. I'm so tired.
Just like maintain and not, Also, it's like, it's a never-ending rat race. Like you could keep trying to get more and more and more and more and more followers, and like, to what end? There is no end.
And once you master one platform, there's a new one to master. Like,
I know.
I can't do this my whole life. I can't be 40 doing this. I can't.
No, I feel you. Okay, let's talk about sex.
Yeah.
Because people come for me all the time because my podcast is technically about relationships and sex. We definitely talk way more about relationships.
Okay.
I think mostly because as a guest on a podcast talking about sex, I have no problem. It's very easy for me. If someone like brings it up and asks me questions, I'm like, yeah, sure. And this is the color of my strap on, and this is this and this and whatever. I'm like open.
Yeah.
But for me to initiate the conversation about sex, especially with someone I just met, less scary with you because it's like your whole thing, but with like just like influencers or like artists or whatever. I'm like, so
Can I be such a therapist right
Yeah.
now? Do you feel that way about initiating sex generally?
Well, yes and no. I do feel I have been more, it's hard to say. I think it's so crazy because I'm like also have to think about all the real people in my life all the time.
Yeah,
I would say in my relationship right now, and I think she wouldn't mind me saying, I am more of the initiator in my relationship now. So I am comfortable.
Yeah. Right.
But it is different, that relationship, than me and a stranger.
Totally.
I think it's just the podcast of it all. Because even in real life, I think I would bring sex up a lot more casually.
There's a power dynamic.
Yeah.
Right now between the two of us.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. And I don't want to make people feel like I'm like, talk about sex.
Yeah.
You know?
I agreed. Let's let everyone know right now.
Yeah.
I'm consenting
There's
to
consent
any
to
and
this.
all questions from Shannon.
The podcast is literally about it. So I'm like, I'm sure people usually know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just is harder to me to like, it's harder to bring up and make it feel casual.
Yeah.
Okay. But we can talk about it. I think, right?
We can do this.
What did I want to ask you? Okay. First of all, do you think scissoring is real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
why is that
I've
a
done
question?
It, so why is it a question?
Me too.
I mean, the logistics aren't that easy. It's not
Yeah.
the position I'm gonna go to. If I'm gonna
Fair.
be scissoring, we're gonna need to spend some time getting there and laughing and feeling awkward and like nobody's probably gonna orgasm there. Maybe. But yeah, very real. Top 5 positions? No. Not for me.
Fair. It's definitely real. Why do you think it is a question that people so often ask?
It's just become so much of a stereotype that people are like, is this even real? Oh, it's very real.
It's very real.
If there's a way for people to rub their genitals together, they will find it.
It's so true.
Yeah, they'll find it.
That is so true. It's like evolution. We're trying to make babies out here. We can't. I don't think, not yet, but we'll keep trying.
They'll keep trying.
What's the other? Oh, okay. What do you think? You talk a lot about it in your book, where you like bring up, which I thought was like really interesting, how often you at least like acknowledge non-monogamy. Because I feel like in most sex-oriented books like that weren't in the last 5 years, you'd have to find a book that's specifically about non-monogamy.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Rather than just acknowledging that not everyone is monogamous.
Right.
But do you feel that the queer community in general is like becoming more and more open and non-monogamous, and why?
Yeah, I think we are. I think there's a number of reasons. I think on one level we have people that maybe, especially around our age, maybe a little older, who have found themselves in, maybe they're women in relationships with men, and they are now coming to terms with their sexuality, and they may want to explore that without leaving their relationship. They might be in a really happy relationship. And I do think that opening can be one way that especially bi people end up getting to explore later in life or in midlife. I think also, and I'm not non-monogamous, but I really appreciate the movement towards no default whatsoever. So not defaulting towards monogamy, not defaulting towards non-monogamy, allowing yourself to be open to both. And then if you end up circling back to monogamy as the choice that you make after considering all the options, then you're probably going to be doing it more intentionally. You'll have learned a lot along the way. So I think that the things that make non-monogamy work are very similar to the strategies that make monogamy work. And it's just about, what kind of work do you want to do?
Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be hard.
True. It seems like on TikTok even, I'm seeing so many like memes and jokes about like people being like, when you finally find someone who's down to not be open, like it's like it's almost like swinging the other way of people being like, oh my God, everyone is polyamorous or non-monogamous, and you're like, wait, what happened?
Right. And I think that there was a time, and I think this is still the case in some circles, where like being non-monogamous or polyamorous is equated with being more evolved. And I just simply don't think that's the case.
No.
I don't think either is more evolved.
Yeah. And who's to say what is like, what is right? Probably years and years and hundreds and years ago, like non-monogamy was probably the default, right?
I mean, gosh, I don't know. I'm sure. I'm like, all I know is the Bible. Yeah. And then they were pretty non-monogamous in the Bible.
Yeah. I'm like just thinking of like cavemen. I'm like,
they got it.
They had to be doing whatever they wanted to be doing, right? I don't know. You also talk a lot in the book about like the escalator.
Yeah, the relationship escalator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like non-monogamy and the relationship escalator go hand in hand with kind of like pushing back on really heteronormative, like patriarchal standards that we have in our culture.
Totally.
That's something I talk about a lot on my podcast too, is me breaking away from that because I'm 32, but I'm from Dallas. So my friends, if I go onto my Instagram, my friends are having like their third kid.
Yeah.
And kind of like releasing the pressure on myself to be standing side by side with them. Can you explain it, by the way, the escalator?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the idea that there is sort of a path that's mapped out, and unless you're following those steps, your relationship is stagnant or going backwards. And those steps are, you know, dating, moving in together, becoming married, having children. And that if you're not escalating in that way, then there's something wrong or some kind of intervention needs to happen. I will tell you something that has been so good for me in stepping off the relationship escalator is the experience of getting engaged and then breaking off an engagement.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh God, I was on that escalator, climbing. And then, you get there. And I imagine people who are married having kids have this experience as well. You really do live out the reality like that does not equate happiness. And it's been so freeing to sort of have seen the top and been like, okay, yeah, it's still fucking hard up here. And then have just jumped right off. I think it takes effort because it feels like you're swimming upstream to be intentional about not taking those steps just for taking those steps' sake.
Totally.
But God, it's so freeing. And you don't have to be non-monogamous to step off the relationship escalator, although for a lot of people, it feels like the really natural way to do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like I'm monogamous, like serial monogamous, I think.
Yeah. I would say so.
Is that a bad thing?
I don't know a lot about you, but I think I know.
Is being a serial monogamous a bad thing?
I mean, I'm also serial monogamous. It's not good or bad. There's just like pros and cons, right? If you had been alone for the last 5 years, there'd also be pros and cons. You're probably pretty good at being in a relationship. I don't know how good you are at not being in a relationship. I don't know you well enough, but
so true. I do talk about codependency in my therapy a lot. I had therapy today.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
All about codependency?
Not all about, a little bit. Talked about your book. Talked about the things that came up when I was reading your book.
That makes me so happy.
The defensiveness and the people-pleasing thing.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, how do those go hand in hand? How can you be both defensive and also people-pleasing?
Yeah. Well, imagine if your life was centered around making people happy. And then you felt like you weren't doing that well.
Yeah.
Right? Like we defend against the things that feel most central to us. So.
Okay, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it adds up.
I'm getting it. I'm definitely getting it. We were also joking because something kind of like came up today that like switched the plans I had for this next week. Like a big plan just shifted. And then I was like, I vented about it. And then I was like, actually, I don't really even care about this. Like, it's fine. I don't care. I feel fine about this change. I was like, but you know what's so weird? It's like I'm so, my temperament is so laid back for most things. But one thing that really I like feel stresses me out is if I had a plan, like I made the plan and like I picked the restaurant and then the restaurant was bad or something happened and we couldn't go. And even though I'm like, usually any plan could be like, oh, and we're still doing this. This is different. I don't care. When it was my plan, then I'm like, oh my God, I failed. I did a bad thing.
Oh, do you have a hard time if you're like watching a movie with someone and you chose the movie? Are you paying more attention to like whether or not they're liking it than the movie? Yeah, I mean, that's
and it like hurts my feelings if they don't like it. And I'm like, I didn't make this fucking movie. Yeah. Why do I care? And they don't care.
Of course not.
They don't care. No, I literally had to.
I know.
I actually talk about my partner again. I had to have a conversation with her recently because I took her to a nail salon that I picked. Why the fuck am I picking?
Yeah.
By the way.
Great question.
That was the first red flag. But no, it was in my neighborhood and we weren't in her neighborhood. So I was like, oh, I've been to this place before. I'm sure it's fine. We go. They can't do the type of manicure she wanted. I don't even know what it was.
Wow.
So
you did a terrible job.
I know. And then we're leaving and I could feel myself being like upset. Yeah. But she was mad at the nail salon, not mad, but she was like, why didn't they just say they couldn't do it from the beginning? Because they like had us sit there and we paid for it. It was like this whole thing. But I couldn't like get angry with her at them because I was upset that I didn't do a good job, but I didn't like really understand what was happening. And then we had this whole conversation where she was like, I just wanted you to validate like that was annoying what they did. And I was like, I know, but I don't know why. I was like taking it personally.
Totally. Right.
And then she was like, I need you to know I forgot you picked the nail salon. Like at no point was my upset feeling towards them even related to you. And I was like, okay, so yes, I hear that. I'm like, damn it.
Totally. I mean, that's the defensive,ness, right? Like we can't talk about how bad the nail salon is because it's an extension of me now.
I own that nail salon. Yeah. Did you not know?
It's yours now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's wild. Like that your brain can do that. And I'm like, I guess, I think my therapy now is like just has always been, but trying to figure out like, where did I create that?
Well, you didn't create it. I mean, you learned it. Somebody somewhere taught that to you.
Totally. Yeah. I also grew up with like a lot of chaos just because my parents got divorced. But then I had like one of those things where it was like, wow, I love it. I'm like, this is a therapy session now.
I'm here for it.
I went from therapy to therapy. But yeah, like I had like one of those schedules where it was like Monday, Tuesday at my mom's house, Wednesday, Thursday at my dad's house, every other weekend, back and forth. So just like a lot of like, I think that's also why my temperament is like pretty chill because I'm like, I'm very used to not having my things.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, my volleyball uniform? Yeah, that's at my mom's house. My game tomorrow, but I'm at my dad's house. Like I'm going to get in trouble for it when I go to school, even though I'm 15, I have no car, I can't go get the volleyball. Like,
yeah. Were you a peacekeeper in your family at all?
Yeah, I think of less peacekeeper and more not going to cause the problem.
Yeah, okay.
Like
keeping the peace.
I'll just be like kind of like I'm the laid back one, like and very like praised for being the one that
totally
was easy.
Right.
Like, Shannon's so easy.
Yeah. So then in moments when you tell yourself you're not being easy or you've caused a problem, it's going to be really distressing.
Yeah, it feels terrible.
Yeah.
And then the queerness of it too. When I think back about it, it's like that was a whole other thing that was going on beneath the surface that I was also not talking about. So it was like,
totally.
If you guys knew what was really going on here.
Yeah.
I'm also reading this other book. Well, I just finished it, but it's called Sunburn. But it's about like high school in Ireland and these two girls having this like secret relationship with each other. And the one girl at one point, she's like, says something about, did I face adult problems as a kid because of her queerness? Because when she was like 16, having to envision the possibility that she could be abandoned for who she was.
Totally.
And I was like, oh my God, that's so interesting. I feel like all queer people to some degree must face like these like problems that should be so much.
Yeah.
It should be they shouldn't be within grasp to them.
Yes.
And we all have them.
Yeah. I mean, I would go even a step further and just say all kid problems are adult problems.
True.
Right? Like every single problem a kid has originates in an adult to some degree or in like the systems that adults create and live in. Another letter I found, a paper I found in this box that my mom brought me was this paper that was like, why don't adults realize like how seriously kids feel about things, how seriously they experience things. When I was in love with my best friend as a 16-year-old, I mean, that was the realest thing in the world to me. Adult or kid problem, it doesn't matter. It's so real. Those queer heartbreaks where whether we knew they were heartbreaks or not, that we had no one to go to talk about them. That's trauma to me.
Yeah. You talk a lot about that in the book too, trauma.
Yeah.
And just like kind of can you explain it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I got this.
Terrible way to ask that question.
Yeah, no. I mean, one of the sort of central arguments of the book is that our lack of sex education and just being steeped in homophobia is in itself a trauma. And so when you explain what it was like for you in that nail salon, right, that is a symptom of trauma. That's not, an inherent flaw that you have. And if we can start to see compulsory sexuality and homophobia as traumatic experiences, then we can understand our responses to them as trauma responses and not as, coming out too late or not knowing enough about queer sex. Like those actually make perfect sense in the light of what we've been through and what we haven't been through. And so, I conceptualize sex therapy as at its core trauma work.
Yeah. Who do you think is like, what's your most common like patient or client? What do you refer to them as patients or clients?
Yeah, clients. I work with relationships and individuals. I would say in relationships, desire discrepancy, people who want different kinds of sex, different amounts of sex. Sex has changed since they met. And individuals, probably mostly identity stuff. People coming into themselves in different ways and asking like what that means for themselves and their lives.
Totally.
Yeah.
The discrepancy.
There you go.
Thank you. I know words sometimes. I feel like that's a huge thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially, it does feel like with lesbians and like the myth or reality of lesbian bed death. But I guess it's not even exactly the same, because I feel like that's less of a discrepancy, because so often I feel like lesbians arrive there together, like over time. And then it's not like, oh, she wants more and I want less. It's like, we both want more. Why aren't we doing it?
Yeah, we both want more. Or maybe we both want less. Should we want more? Are we okay for not wanting more? Yeah. I think a lot of times it's that too.
And how do you work through that with people?
I mean, it depends. But where I always start is trying to help people understand how much of the sense of urgency that I have around having more sex is actually coming from my intrinsic desire, and how much of that is coming from the idea that if we're not having sex, we're in a bad place. If we're not having as much sex as our friends, what does that mean about us? So it starts with a lot of like untangling the narratives that are often the reason why people feel so anxious.
Totally.
And we do that because anxiety like isn't hot. So we got to work with the anxiety first, and then maybe, desire comes later.
Back.
Yeah.
Wow. It's so stressful.
Yeah.
Why am I'm stressed.
You're stressed for all these couples out there. Are you taking this on?
Yeah, apparently.
This is your fault.
I do get that question like most when I open up to like my audience and say, what do you want to know about sex? So many of the questions are about
desire.
Yeah. And like just lesbian bed death.
Totally. Go to sex therapy.
Yeah.
This is what we're here for. Like you don't have to do this by yourself.
Except for, how do you find a good sex therapist?
Yeah. Well, I have 30 of them that work at my company.
True.
And we work in all 50 states. So you can do that. But what I would look for is folks who are certified in sex therapy. So you can go to the AASECT website, that's AASECT, and look up a therapist in your state, and they'll have had the training.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Because I also feel like people get bad therapists sometimes.
Terrible.
Just
I mean, therapists we're people. A lot of us choose this field to heal ourselves, for better or worse.
True.
And some are further along in that process than others. And I don't even know if I really had business being a therapist when I first started. So for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first therapist I ever had, I was like 16, and my mom like sent me to therapy because I got outed kind of like by the girl I liked's family.
Oh, God.
And I think she had like religious script like on the wall behind her, or like
Shannon.
at least like a cross or something going on in that room. And I'm like, so much of that therapy felt like her being like, a lot of girls feel this way. And I was like, I don't know about that.
Why is that such a Christian like go-to? It's like everyone wants to make out with their friends.
I'm like, did you?
Jesus can
I
help.
think you did. That like every time though.
Right.
Like even like, the girl who I loved, her mom was like, my freshman college roommate had a crush on me. I'm like,
are you okay?
are we all just a little gay?
Yeah. The answer,
Honestly, yes. The answer is yes.
I also was sent to a therapist when I was 16 because I was so depressed around this best friend that I was in love with. And I remember saying to my therapist, I don't know what's going on with me. Like, I just want to sit in her lap. And the therapist was like, I just really think this is about your mom. Like, I think this is about your mom. And, 20 years later, I'm like, it probably was a little bit about my mom. But I also fully wanted to have sex with this girl. So, it can be all of the above. It can be all of the above.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
Yeah.
Did you feel like I feel like in the, I keep pointing at the book. I feel like in the book though, you talk a little bit like about like purity culture or like, but you had sex, but you were also going to school to be a pastor?
Oh, yeah. I was full of multitudes. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel, I don't know. Like,
I felt horrible.
Like, did you feel like that was sinful as like anything else?
Totally. I mean, I lost my, God, here I go. Not believing in losing your virginity and still, susceptible to the same things as everybody else. Yeah. Lost it. It was gone. I was 18. Horrible experience. And after that relationship, I didn't have sex again for years. I became a born again virgin.
Oh, yep.
And felt redeemed, was all good until I was like a junior in college and horny and was like, I guess we're doing this. And yeah, I have journals of just like letters to Jesus. Like, I am so sorry. Oh, found a journal recently that I'd written to my future husband.
Oh yeah,
apologizing for all the
No.
ways I'd given myself to other people.
No.
It's so sad. It's so sad.
It's so bizarre.
And I mean, this is why I had a mental breakdown. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I was holding all of these things.
Oh, totally. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Was your mental breakdown, that's when you went to the hospital and then the person had the like knife?
Yeah.
Can you explain that story? Again, I'm just like not asking questions, but I'm like, tell the story.
I will
Could
say,
you read your
like,
book?
I've been interviewed probably 100 times about this book, and nobody asks me to explain the knife story. So I'm appreciating this.
Please.
Yeah, no, I did not want to be alive when I was in my early 20s. I had been dealing with anorexia for many years and had been to many treatment centers, and it wasn't working. And I'd gotten to a point where I was like, I just don't think I'm a person that can recover from this. And so I attempted suicide in Georgia at like a facility that I was at. And I didn't know that, at least at the time, that wasn't legal. And so I was taken into police custody. I was taken into this facility, and yeah, this guy had a shiv, and my life was threatened. And it was a really interesting moment of feeling protective over my life for the first time in many years, and realizing like, maybe I do want to be here. And I kid you not, it was in that place that I first said to myself, like, I think I'm queer.
Wow.
And yeah, I think it was that. I think it really was the sort of like cliche life flashing before my eyes moment that I now, I guess, am grateful for. But yeah, I mean, could have a whole other episode on how messed up involuntary hospitalization is.
Yeah.
But yeah, came out of it real gay.
That's so. I think it just goes to show how powerful like our brains are at like suppressing things.
Oh yeah.
That it took that experience. And it's so wildly, it almost feels like ironic that you didn't want to be alive, but then your life is starting, and then you're like, wait, not only do I want to be alive, I want to
be gay
sleep
and
with
alive.
women.
Yeah, right.
Please.
Totally.
That is so.
Yeah. I think I say in the book, like, when most people have these experiences, they see the light of God, and why was I like seeing my future wife? That was my religious experience. And yeah, I don't want anybody to have to go to, an involuntary facility for them to realize they're queer.
Totally.
That's literally why I do what I do.
Yeah. Seems like we could get there in
Seems
other
like
ways.
there's other roads. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay. Like we're the same age.
I'm like really been embracing aging lately.
Yeah.
Which is, again, a whole other episode, but
I'm working on that myself.
Yeah. Happy to talk about it anytime.
Do you feel like speaking of age, do you feel like you missed like an adolescence of sorts, or like a dating period that our straight friends and family got to have?
I don't feel like I missed it. I just feel like it was my late 20s.
Yeah. It just was
and it was
delayed.
just like more embarrassing to be, a grown person behaving that way. But it did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. Although it is interesting because I was in love with that girl when I was 16 and we did like kiss.
Yeah.
So I had
jealous.
that, but then it was so repressed, like just so weird. I was looking, just like we went to the dance together, but with dates.
Yeah. Oh,
with boys,
God.
But then we like
Romeo and
danced face
Juliet.
to face.
Yeah. Oh.
Grinding on boys.
Oh.
It's just like so dark.
Yeah. Wow.
So like I had an experience, but it was like so repressed and weird.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
look, we both survived.
Here we are.
Okay, I think this is a great question because I do feel like I get this a lot too.
Yeah.
What do you say to people who are like, how do I have sex with a woman?
Yeah. I mean, when women ask me that question, I'll usually start with, well, how do you have sex with yourself? Like, tell me about what feels good for you. Often the things that feel good for you are going to feel good, or at least are an entry point for a conversation with somebody else. I think having sex with a woman often starts with talking to the woman about what they know about themselves. Like we, we've had 32, 33 years of experience with our bodies. We've got a lot to share if somebody were to ask us that question. So I think ask away. And yeah, I would have the conversation and then honestly begin with what has worked for you. And then getting into the nitty gritty of it, right? Like we can talk about the common erogenous zones. Of course, like women's bodies are very varied between vulvas, penises, etc. But, usually the genitals are an erogenous zone. Usually the nipples are an erogenous zone. I don't know how detailed your listeners want me to get with all this, but
I'm sure they would love you to get detailed. I mean, I feel like I always just say, I'm like, you'll figure it out.
yeah, right.
It'll happen.
I mean, think back to your first time. I'll think back to mine. But I just let her touch me first, and I just paid attention. I was a very good student. I was like, okay, and she's doing this and this. And then when it was my turn, I just sort of emulated what I had witnessed. And I think that in the absence of sex ed, like, we just become each other's teachers. And once you learn how to have like really good sex with one woman, like, know how to have really good sex with one woman, and you're starting over with the next one.
It's
and
so true.
When people have this idea of like, God, I'm gonna be a total beginner, I'm like, we are all, when we meet somebody new, a beginner.
So
we just don't
true.
know. The thing that worked really well for your last girlfriend might be the most triggering thing you could do to the next one.
That is so true. I've thought about that, but I've never like expressed that on the podcast, at least.
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess I have a little when I've talked to women who have slept with men before, and how straightforward they feel male, like heteronormative sex is. Straight sex. I don't know. I don't know what's proper to say, but anyway, penetrative penis vagina sex, very straightforward, always kind of the same is what. I've never had sex with a guy, so hard for me to say, but the women that have had sex with women and men, whatever, they're like, I said this so crazy, I'm so sorry.
I'm just watching you get a little bit red. I get it. No, like, it is
I just don't want to say the wrong thing.
Recorded. Right?
Yes. I'm like, oh my God, I'm normal. I promise, usually. Anyway, that sex is way more straightforward. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so true, because every partner I've had sex is different. So it's like, there's not one way to sleep with a woman. So if you're trying to get an answer that's like, this is what you do.
Yeah, no.
You will never know. But that's also like the fun of it.
Yeah, totally. Gosh. Yeah, I mean, it's not even just that having sex with a new body is different. Even for me, having sex with me 10 years ago is very different than having sex with me now.
So
I
true.
would not have orgasmed 10 years ago, for sure. I would not have been able to communicate what felt good to me 10 years ago. So yeah, I mean, it's not even just about different bodies. It's the sex I'm going to want in 10 years is probably very different than the sex I want right now.
That is so true. Great job again.
Thank
doing
you.
Great.
Yeah.
I can't fucking talk, but you're doing great.
Good. You're good.
Okay, yeah. Also in the book, you talk about orgasms and like how you had a hard time in the past.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I feel like a lot of women do. And I also feel like so much of performance anxiety, when we hear about it in like culture, is all male centered and like mostly about not being able to get an erection. But many women feel performance anxiety in not climaxing. Like, lots of my friends will talk about it and be like embarrassed about it, or like they'll fake an orgasm.
Totally.
So much happening where like they're so in their head. I also I can get so in my head in sex. But less about the orgasm, more about just like, I'm like thinking about what I should be doing, or how I'm being perceived, instead of just like,
are you
being
people
present.
pleaser in your sex life too? Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Not defensive though,
right.
I don't think.
No.
In bed. Anyway, do you feel like that's like a big thing you talk about in your work too?
Yeah. Orgasm?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the conversation will start with being about orgasm, struggling to orgasm, but it's almost never actually about orgasm. It's exactly what you're describing, right? It's being in your head, not being in your body, struggling to let go, not letting yourself take up that space, take long enough. It takes a lot of people with vulvas a really long time to orgasm. And the like 5 minutes that we allow somebody to go down on us is just simply not going to be enough. So yeah, talk about it all the time. I'm still on a journey with it myself. I didn't orgasm regularly with partners until maybe 3 years ago when I was 30. And so, yeah, probably will be on a lifelong journey with it. But yeah, it is true that that women in relationship with women have more orgasms than almost anybody else, though, because we are actually taking the time to understand each other's bodies.
Totally. Well, and also if there's not a man to arrive and finish, then like there is no like end. Necessarily. Like a finish line.
Well, I have had sex with women with penises, and I will say that it's not even about it. The penis is not the problem. It is the mentality that the penis is the center of everything that is the problem. Right, there's like a penis ejaculating doesn't have to be the end of sex either. For some reason, we've just decided
that
it has to be. Yeah.
Seems like we've decided that that's what it is.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like I've slept with women who've been like, I probably won't come. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
How does that feel when they say that?
It usually happens before.
Great.
It's honestly one person.
Okay.
And she told me before we ever slept together.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, oh, okay, good to know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it didn't happen, I was like bummed out a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I also was like, okay, wait, she did tell me.
Totally.
And then I was like, okay, I don't take it personally. And then also when she did, I was like, hell yeah. Fuck yeah.
Okay, this is something I coach people to do a lot, is to tell people if they're unlikely to have an orgasm, because it takes the pressure off of the person who is expected to have an orgasm. It helps take the pressure off the person who thinks it's their job to give somebody an orgasm. And then you can kind of enjoy the sex for what it is. And also, you're allowed to have feelings about it, right? Like, you're allowed, if you're bummed, you're bummed. You can't talk yourself out of that. And I think that, like, we'd all do ourselves a big favor by letting the other person know our relationship with orgasm before we try to make it happen.
Yeah. But it does feel like, I feel like that would feel very vulnerable if you were that person expressing that.
Yeah. I have been that person. I am still that person, because even though I can orgasm regularly with partners now, it's not going to happen on a first date ever. And it's a practice thing. Like, I've been doing it for 6 years now. It's like whatever, and people appreciate it. But yeah, and why does it feel like a confession that it's hard to orgasm? I don't know.
I know, especially when I'm like, I know that feeling too.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
I just might not have said it out loud to you.
Right.
But yeah, that's so true. What would your advice be to navigate having sex with someone who's trans?
Yeah. I mean, it's the exact same thing that I said about women. Once you learn how to have great sex with one trans person, you know how to have great sex with one trans person, because people may have dysphoria. They may not have dysphoria. Their dysphoria might show up in one body part versus another. It might show up differently on one day versus another day. Depending on the part of their journey with transness that they're in, it can be incredible and empowering, or scary and vulnerable. And I think that's true for everybody, regardless of gender. I think, gosh, when I have had sex with trans people, I've learned so much. I've like felt expanded myself. I feel like permission to explore and get creative, and it's been wonderful. So yeah, I think that a few years ago, if somebody had asked me this question, I would have been like, yeah, go in and be really sensitive to the stage of somebody's journey. And yes, all of that is true. But actually, like, we are all on a journey with our gender, trans or not. We all have something to learn from each other. And so I don't think we need to go in treating anybody as fragile. I think the same questions that I would ask a trans person about their body, I would love to also be asked about my body. We don't have to like silo off certain communities when we think about how we're going to have sex.
So true. Great answer. Do you think you can tell if someone's a top or bottom based off their energy? And what do you think about top and bottom?
Do I think I can, or do I think one can?
Can you?
I think I can, yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
I like, someone walks in the room and I'm like, hard eyes, and I'm like, okay, they're definitely a top, but I just go off of my own reaction to them. Do I always think you could tell? No. I think some people will be surprising. Like, I think I like to think I might be a little surprising. I've like, in my job, have a lot of top energy, and then I'm like the most submissive, like little brattiest person ever. So yeah, I don't know. I like to think we can surprise each other.
Yeah, I definitely think. I also think there's a huge misconception about like gender expression and whether or not you're a top or bottom.
Oh yeah.
It's funny how much TikTok is like changing some of the disillusionment like that we have around lesbians in general. Just like things I've known because I've been out and queer for so long and talked, like, obviously I've known the like trope about like the like more masked person being like baby at home.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But I feel like straight people are getting this like window, and also like newly queer people are getting this window, and they're like, what? Didn't know that could be. Yeah. And also like femmes that are like the most femme, and they're like dominant, top.
Totally. Yeah.
And want to date.
It's amazing. And we need more.
We do need more. My old roommate always is joking that she is one. And I'm like, you do that, Zoe. Go for it. But yeah, I mean, they definitely exist. But yeah, everything is so heteronormative when you think about it. Like that all is coming so much from. Also, I thought it was so interesting. I never really thought about white supremacy in how that would affect sex, and like the whole thing about purity, and like that who people think would be the most pure woman, and that she's like a young white blonde wearing white.
Totally, right? I mean,
It's so great. I just never really thought about it.
Yeah.
But as soon as I read about it, I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
yeah, I think there's a lot of things as white people that like we don't really have to think about until somebody,
Someone
it's right in
tells
front of
us
us.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it does feel like there's a lot more learning happening in the last few years, which is nice and good.
Yes.
Okay. Other thing I wanted to talk to you about. You're dating again.
I have just started dating again.
So you just posted about it.
Yeah, you got me.
Are you ready to talk about
Yeah,
that?
let's talk about it.
How does that feel? How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's really my first time on the apps since my late 20s, really. And dating in my 30s is like so much worse and so much better. Because, well, some of my standards have gone way up and some of them have gone way, way down.
Nice.
I mean, I'm like, listen, I don't really care about your astrological chart. I don't really care if you have the same taste in music, but I need to know what is your bedtime and what time do you wake up in the morning. I need to know our sleep cycle compatibility.
True.
That's what I'm out here for. I'm looking for somebody that will just like let me be a freak. And I think that is what I'm experiencing with a lot of people in our 30s is it's less about like, let me find somebody that we can co-create a new life with. And it's more like, no, I already have a life. I really like it. I really like myself. Does this fit?
Totally.
Not that we wouldn't, adapt and shift for each other, but that feels very different from dating at 27 when it was like, I will become whatever this relationship needs me to be.
Totally.
And the people I'm dating now and myself are like, it's just, it's not that way anymore.
You like know yourself better.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm watching The Golden Bachelor.
Oh my
Golden
God.
Bachelorette.
Yeah.
And Joan is the Bachelorette, and she asked someone, she's like, "So, what does a morning look like for you?" And I'm like, I've never heard that on The Bachelor.
The question.
Like 24-year-old, 25-year-old, 26. They're not asking like,
Right.
"What's your morning look like?" She's literally like, "So, what do you do in the morning?" And like, I'm like, that's so.
your bedtime
It's exactly what
routine?
you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we like we're more rigid, but like, are we? We just have like been alive for so much longer.
Yeah, we just know what we need.
Yeah. I actually don't know what I
No,
need.
you're still working on it. I mean, clearly same, but
Yeah.
a little bit more. We know a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know what time I go to bed and what time I wake up.
Yeah. What time?
Oh God. I don't know if you want to know. Like I go to bed definitely after 1 a.m.
Wow.
and I try to wake up by 9.
Yeah. So we would not be compatible.
Yeah.
No.
No, but I am also happy. I feel like it's kind of almost similar to the relationship escalator or whatever. Just like, I think I spent so much of my 20s, early 20s and late 20s feeling really guilty about my sleep patterns and like feeling like that equated to me being like not efficient or lazy or,
really?
And then I was like, wait, I'm just like a creative person whose brain actually doesn't even turn on till like 7 p.m. Unfortunately.
Totally.
Like that creative part of me is like dormant until the sun is down. And then I'm like, okay,
Here we
I
go.
might as well do that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the same thing, just like kind of
No
unpacking
judgment.
what the world thinks a good life looks like.
Totally.
What does that mean? Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Are you on apps like Field?
I'm not on Fields.
Okay.
I was on Hinge and then I got tired and I deleted it a few days ago.
Got it.
And yeah, I just actually went on a first date that went really well for the first time in a while. That feels nice and exciting. But yeah, I do the apps.
Yeah.
Like that's the main way.
And before this, you considered yourself a serial monogamist. But I saw
I
I
still consider myself.
yeah,
I
okay.
can't.
But I did see that you were like celibate, like forced for a minute or something,
Yeah.
right?
Well, not forced.
like you like
Intentional.
yes. Okay.
I did. It did feel like I was forced for a while there. Well, I did just, part of it was a little bit forced. I just got back from an ayahuasca journey, actually.
Oh, wow.
And I had to be celibate for 2 weeks before that. But the rest was a really unhinged choice that I made for myself. And yeah, I haven't broken my celibacy yet. So
Wow.
yeah, it's rough. It's rough. But it's over now. Like
Yeah,
when I meet somebody that I want to be with,
it's not forced anymore.
Yeah. It's not forced. It's not forced anymore.
Self-enforced.
Yeah.
Wait, also you said something really interesting. I saw, was it on TikTok? But about that period of time and when you were not dating and when you weren't like sleeping with people and that you were finding yourself showing up like anxious with friendships.
Oh yeah. It's like all of my anxious attachment just transferred onto my friends. When I had a partner constantly, there was always somebody to agree with me and back me up. Like I'd come home from friend hangouts and be like, this person did this person did this. And my partner would be like, yes, for sure. Yes, you are correct. And I would leave friend hangouts and not have a partner to come back to and then just be in conversation with myself. Like, what was that normal? Did I act okay? I have social anxiety. And I realized that like, gosh, I have to build an entirely new muscle, which is a secure relationship with myself that I had been avoiding doing through just being in relationship after relationship. So that is, that was the purpose, right? Is like to come out of it and not be single forever, but to rely on a partner, not necessarily less, but just like in the ways that feel healthier for me.
That's so nice. Do you feel like you got there? Do you feel like you built that?
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the first like intensive chunk is over. And now the work will be, as I do hopefully have a partner, how do I hold on to the things that I
and not
figured
just
out?
Transfer back.
It would be so easy.
Yeah.
It would be so easy. I'm like finding myself like, pulled.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I can relate.
Yeah.
Sure. Wait, okay. Last thing before we do some advice questions.
Okay.
How is ayahuasca?
Oh my God. Have you done it?
No, but I've like had times in my life where I was like, I want to.
Yeah.
But then something will happen and I'm like, I know it'll all become about that thing now,
Yeah.
So
totally. It was amazing, devastating, life-changing, had many visions. I work with this like incredible medicine woman who lives in Mexico. And yeah, if anybody wants a referral, come my way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to pick your brain more about this because I'm very curious. And my sister, as I said to you, is a therapist as well. And I think she feels the same way as I felt you feel in the book about like traditional, like Western medicine and how limited it is on working through trauma.
Totally.
Because Casey has also, my sister Casey, has looked into kind of like the ketamine treatments and stuff like that.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm so interested to see where we go with those things and when people can actually start incorporating that into like their healing journeys.
Yeah, totally.
And like more easily accessible because I feel like right now we don't have enough like, I feel like a lot of people would be scared still to go and do anything that wasn't like FDA approved. Not that the FDA is
that's
that
the whole
awesome.
problem, right? Is like as soon as it's FDA approved, it's also like gets into the hands of white people, and then it becomes like medicalized. Yeah, it's such a hard line between like wanting people to have access and also the way that the United States will just like fuck up anything that it gets its hands on.
Yeah.
But yes, very much recommend. It's been a huge part of my sexuality.
That's
for sure.
awesome. Okay, you guys. You can follow Casey on all of her channels. Her socials will be below. Do you have anything else coming up soon that they should keep an eye out?
That's all.
You gonna write another book anytime soon?
Oh God, you got to pay me a lot of money to do that.
Okay, so read this one until you have the strength to do it again.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Follow around everything. I'll have it all below. And thank you for watching this episode of X's and O's. We're gonna answer advice questions over on my Patreon. So if you want to come watch that, go ahead. Are you ready to give a little bit of advice?
I'll try. I'll do my best.
Okay, yay! This episode is sponsored by Cure. Y'all know I like keeping my things in my girlfriend's handbag, and that means I need to make sure it stays pristine. That's why I'm excited about Cure. We maintain our shoes and car, so why not our handbag? They're investments, and Cure makes sure they last a lifetime. Plus, if you ever want to resell, Cure keeps your bags in top condition for maximum value. There's a limited supply available, so head to mycure.com to get your leather care kit today. That's mycure.com. The best way to make your handbag last forever.